I talked to Daniel Gross the other day, and I was like, yeah, I was talking to Sam about this, potentially doing like an audio version of his essay. And he was like, you know what? Like, the thing I would love to hear most is why Sam wrote this and kind of like a breakdown of the logic behind it all. And I thought that was kind of an interesting idea too. So let's just start off with let's start off with the first paragraph. So in your essay, Hard Startups, you wrote, the most counterintuitive secret about startups is that it's often easier to succeed with a hard startup than an easy one. Why did you write this essay, and what do you mean by that?
Well, I wrote this because hard startups are the thing that I love. I'm very, it's sort of like no secret for a long time. I've been really interested in how you can work on these sort of the big iron startups, for lack of a better phrase. I think it's amazing that the lever of technology and sort of the cycle time and the cost of things have come down so much that these are possible. And then the other thing that I think has happened in the last few years, or maybe as much as 8 or 10, is there are now so many startups that people are a little bored of standard startups and things that are working on sort of big, exciting, important for the world if they work problems get extra credit. And that first sentence, which sounds like tautologically untrue, I believe it finally is, and it has been for a few years. Uh, and so I have like the selfish thing of I find these startups interesting and I want more of them to exist. But I also think most people just get this completely wrong and think they have to do an easy startup first or maybe an easy startup only. And and yeah, it's like it's exciting when there's like a big secret that sounds like it can't be true.
Now, kind of the argument you make in your essay is that it's a massive, not only is it a fundraising advantage, even though it might be hard, it's also a recruiting advantage. But one thing that I was curious about in terms of like contrasting it with like quote easy startups. You say easy startups are easy to start but hard to make successful. Can you unpack that a little bit?
So first of all, I think the most important advantage is the recruiting one, not the fundraising one. If you were going to make sort of a stand like a mobile app, like a pure mobile app, you can probably get the first version done in a week, and you can probably get you know some number of users in the first month after you launch. Um, and if you're going to work on developing a new pharmaceutical, say, you're not going to have users in your first month and a week. Um, but so it's easy. It's harder to get going. However, if you're going to try to like build a massively successful, significant effort, uh, once once the momentum is there, once things are moving, uh, it is easier to keep going and get more and more talented people to join you in the quest. And you don't need to recruit everybody on Earth. You need a few hundred or 1,000 talented people.
Sure. And so, in some ways, what you're saying is you kind of like pick this incredibly hard problem, but also work in public as much as you can.
As much as you can may not always be important. You don't want to like overhype things, which I think is a reasonable criticism of OpenAI. But you don't want to be super secretive and you don't want to be super splashy. It's somewhere in the middle.
Now, jumping to your footnote, I found also kind of interesting. Um, you said another solution to this problem is to think about startups that can become quite successful with less than 10
Yeah.
people. Um, are you thinking about, like, I think like maybe WhatsApp could be a good example of this. I think there were like 50 people. Like, what's in your head?
Yeah. So if it's really hard to recruit people for sort of anything right now, which it is, talent I'd say is very fractured. There's two approaches. One is to figure out some startup that can get a bunch of people to join for whatever reason, early massive success or a mission that people really care about. And the other thing is to just start a startup that doesn't require that many people, and then you can give lots of equity and areas of responsibility to the smaller set of people. And I think that is an underexplored strategy.
And would you differentiate that strongly from this kind of like indie hackers movement? Are you still like going with like the PG canonical
Yeah.
startup
So
equals growth?
I talked to a startup recently, and they're like, we're talking about an issue like this, and they said, well, our solution is that we're gonna cross $1 billion valuation with less than 20 people on the team. And I was like, okay, I like it.
Right. All right. So then the last thing you mention in your essay is a time frame. So when you talk about a 10-year time frame, how do you kind of play that out in your head and really make a plan versus something 3 years? Because I imagine, with a 10-year time frame, you're stacking so many chips, you don't actually know how anything's going to fall.
Well,
So like how do
version
you
of
how do
this
you
is
think about
just
that?
allow yourself to work on a problem that is going to take 10 years, and don't be afraid of that. Um, the OpenAI example is people say, well, it's way too early to join. AGI is 10 years away, so maybe I'll think about it in 7 years. And it's like, really? Like, you believe AGI is happening and you're not going to work on it because you think it's 10 years away and not three? Even 10 years isn't that long. And I think, I think people and most people that work on successful startups end up doing it for 10 years anyway. The question is, are you honest with yourself that it's going to take that long up front? And it's not even honest with yourself, because sometimes you just don't know and you get pulled along. But I think just setting out up front that you're planning to work on something for 10 years and that you'll make decisions that may not pay off for 10 years uh, is super valuable.
Did you feel that way about Looped?
Good question. I mean, it's hard to remember how you felt starting something 15 years ago. My memory is that I didn't at the outset, but I am certain.
Yeah, because sometimes I wonder how many people just kind of talk themselves into it. But that's probably okay too.
Yeah.